Hello again, welcome to the second tutorial in this tutorial series. In this tutorial, we're going to be picking up right where we left off and cleaning up our 3D viewport, as well as learning how to move inside of the 3D viewport. Well, so what is the 3D viewport, right? To put it simply, the 3D viewport is the place in which you can view your geometry, like our cube here, when you load up your scene. So this whole kind of space. Within the 3D viewport, we can add more objects, edit the shape of objects, make animations, play animations, and much more. It is the main area that you're going to be working with in Blender. As such, it's important that we understand what's going on both around it and inside of it. Starting with the stuff within the 3D viewport, there's a bar on the left of the screen with a whole bunch of different options. This one right here. These tools allow us to manipulate objects within the 3D viewport. You can toggle this menu on and off with T, which works on both Windows and Mac. You can see that here, it just kind of goes away, nice and neat. Given that most of these tools don't have much use to us, and that the ones that we are actually going to use can be accessed more efficiently, I'm just going to turn off the menu by pressing T. On the opposite side of the 3D viewport, there are some tools for navigating around the 3D viewport. We will dive into these tools a little bit more in a moment, but unless you don't have a number pad, which serves a lot of the same functions that the buttons right here do, I would go over to the Show Gizmos button and uncheck Navigate. And now let's look at some of the objects inside of that 3D viewport. Aside from the cube, there is the camera, which is shaped like a cone, and the light, which is shaped like a circle. We will not be talking much about these features, as they are used mainly for creating animated films and not assets for games. If we left click on, say, the camera, you may notice an element called camera of the panel to the right of the 3D viewport become lit up. So that right here. This panel is called the outliner. Within the outliner, items can be renamed by double clicking on them. So we could call this camera with a K. That might be a little too far, right? Anyway, that's really all that we need to know about the outliner for now. Given that we do not need our camera anymore, we can delete it while having it selected by pressing the delete key. So, in the middle of the screen, it will notify you that you have deleted your object, and it will be gone from the outliner, and it will be gone from the 3D view. So lots of ways to notice that. You can go ahead and do the same thing for the light. Again, use more for animations than game assets. All of the lights will be added in the game engine itself, so this doesn't serve us. Alright, so now there's just a cube left in the scene and in the outliner, but how do we actually move around our scene? The first operation we should know about is orbiting. In order to orbit, hold down the middle mouse button, or substitute, and drag the mouse around. You should be able to spin the view around to see all sides of the cube. If you see it, keep dragging. The mouse will kind of also wrap around the 3D viewport. This also tells you where the bounds of the 3D viewport are, and we can just kind of see everything. Take a moment to practice this move until you feel comfortable with it. Just kind of orbiting around, being able to do it quick, all sorts of directions. If you can do it without getting a headache, also a plus. The next move is the pan. Hold down Shift and the middle mouse button to enter panning mode. And we can start panning by moving our mouse around, just kind of dragging around, and we can pan. And you can exit the mode if you just release all the buttons. Same thing with orbit, just stop holding down the middle mouse. By combining panning and orbiting, we can fluidly move around our cube. So I would practice combining these two operations together to get swift and varied movements and angles. So let's just go ahead and do that. So we're just orbiting, we're panning, we pan then orbit. That's pretty cool, right? And then see, because the orbit, it's picking a point to center around, to rotate around. So when we pan and orbit, we get a lot of different perspectives and views. Our next operation is the zoom. You can simply zoom by scrolling the middle mouse up or down, like this. Not too bad. If you do not have a middle mouse button, you can also hold down Control and press minus to zoom out and equal sign to zoom in. With these tools, we can go far away from our cube and move around in any direction. So yeah, we can just zoom way out and then, right, where are we? We add in an orbit and some panning. Like, I don't know where we are, right? But it's also worth pointing out that the further we get from our cube, the less our zoom will actually do. you see we can't exactly get super far away. I'm zooming in as much as I can here, and we're just not moving. If you find yourself lost in space and unable to get back to the main cube, you can press the period key on the number pad to center the view on the cube. So for those without a number pad, if you just hold down the tilde key, and this will bring up this chart as long as you're holding it down, either press 3 or have the mouse hovering over it as you hover over the option you want. When you release tilde, in this case we want this one, if we're way out, this will bring us back. Or we can just press 3 and it will do the same thing. Just make sure that you have the cube selected, or you won't actually be able to center on the cube because it's choosing the selected object to center on. So if we don't have anything selected, it won't work. But if we're way out and we have nothing selected, see, it won't work. I'm doing my best, but it won't do it. If this ever happens to you, just click the object you want to focus on in the outliner and then press period or use the tilde menu. I would practice getting lost in space a few times and see if you're able to bring yourself back, to find your way back from whatever's going on, just kind of quickly and efficiently, and yeah, just practice your movements, and just have fun with it, And I would stress the point that the easier that you can navigate the viewport, the easier that your life will be, and the more energy that you'll have available to channel into your modeling. So it's incredibly important to have all of these commands down, to really be confident with them and be able to pull them out at any moment, just to make everything simple. So, okay, nearing the end. If you do have a number pad, you can press 1 through 9 to change the way the camera is oriented to preset exact angles. So I'm going to show that off here. 1, 3, 7, and 9 go to exact angles. The other ones rotate in various directions. 8 and 2 rotate up and down. 4 and 6 are left to right. And 5 is orthographic mode versus perspective. We're going to do most of our stuff in perspective, disregarding these kind of front and top views, which we will be using occasionally. For people without a mouse pad, again, the tilde menu, you can do top, you can do front, you can do right, and those are really the main ones that we're going to need for making game assets. The final trick is the most versatile. It's probably best for last for sure. If you hold down shift and tilde, you'll enter a free cam mode. So you can use the mouse to look around. WASD is if you're playing a computer game. W being forward, S backwards, A to the left, D to the right. Q also going down and E going up. But yeah, here we are flying around. If you hold Alt, you go slower, and if you hold Shift, you go faster. And you can also change the speed by using the scroll wheel. I was unable to find an alternative for people without a scroll wheel on that one. But you still have the Shift and the Alt options, which should be good enough. One more thing you can also do is you can cancel your movement. If you enter free cam mode, move around somewhere far, and you press the right click, you'll go back to where you started in free cam. And you could also press left click if you're happy with where you end up. And this concept of using right click to cancel certain operations is something that's very common in Blender. And that's it. This tutorial may have seemed really long-winded and unnecessary, which is kind of how I feel after having written it out. But I cannot stress enough how important it is to be able to move around your scene efficiently. Here's an example from a scene that I worked on for a class project. Within the scene, there are objects placed at a variety of heights. So we have these posters, and how can we get to them? Well, one way, we can use the period key, and we can zoom out to get a better view. Another way is free cam to look around the scene. We're going a little fast, so we can hold down Alt to go a little slower. And if we want to take a better look at this closet, for example, we can fly in. We wanted to look at this thing, we could focus on it with the period key, zoom, and then pan, orbit, see all these little details in here, so that all these things that were modeled were only able to be modeled because we were able to see them, because we were able to see in these places. Another good example are these little pegs down here. they could only be modeled because we could get the perspective. And the potential to have this much detail in an object comes from being able to navigate around a scene efficiently and being able to generate a variety of angles that you can model at. You don't want to be confined to just left and right because the scene is taking place in 3 dimensions. And as such, we have to be able to do that too. We also have to be able to move in 3 dimensions. Otherwise, it's going to look a little awkward, what we create. So it's very important. These are super, super fundamental stuff. And if you're able to get a good grasp on this stuff, you will have a huge leg up over some people who are just trying to go out on their own. And I think this will help avoid a lot of frustration for people. It's also important to get used to using shortcuts. We introduced a few of them here. Blender is full of them. Being able to memorize them is huge for being able to work quickly. And I'm going to introduce a lot more moving forward. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for sticking with me. I promise we're going to have some fun. I know I said that last time we'd be manipulating geometry, but next time we're going to have some fun with it. So, take care until then. Thanks.